the hospitality sector. I'm going to give it over to you first, Alana.
Okay, can we hear me? Am I unmuted properly?
Yes, you are.
Stunning. So I am Alana Maselli. I'm a chef. I actually know Katrina from, she was my teacher in culinary school. So this is a little bit cool. So I am a chef currently based in Newcastle. I started pretty much as soon as I could in school. Probably like 15 or 16, I started in the industry. Started using TVET, which I had access to in school, which was awesome. So from there, I just went straight into culinary school at Ultimo TAFE, which is where I know Katrina from. Then I pretty well started off, I got like an amazing connection, which I'm super grateful to have had. I don't even remember where I got it from, but I managed to get my first chef job at Aria, at the Opera House, which was very daunting for little 18-year-old Alana. So I started there, and then after a little bit of time, I got offered a full-time apprenticeship at Sofitel. So I don't know if you guys know the brand. It's a very fancy French fine dining hotel chain, basically. So I was based in Sydney there, did my apprenticeship there, stayed on for 3 or 4 years. And by that time, I was like early 20s. I was like, okay, I'm going to keep pushing myself. And I decided to move overseas. So I went to the UK for a couple of years to keep further pursuing my career and learning and growing a bit of a skin working in London as a 21-year-old. So yeah, I worked in various places over there, from hotels on Park Lane to just like tiny little Scottish pubs. But it was all part of the learning experience. And I came back when I was 23, and managed to get an opportunity to open a brand new venue in Newcastle, which was very, very daunting and very, very cool at 23, but I did it. And once that was up and running and thriving, about 3 years there, I left because I got offered a full-time job as the head chef at Subo, which is, I don't know if many of you know Newcastle well. It's it was a previously hatted fine dining degustation restaurant. So it was hatted, and in my time there, I actually reclaimed the hat at 26, which is pretty cool, I'd say. And yeah, now I'm in Newcastle still, and I'm about to open a new venue in the next month.
Amazing. And obviously, like Alana just said, I obviously know Alana because she was one of my students when we were at TAFE New South Wales. Do you think the study pathway, Alana, that you took was the right pathway to get you into hospitality? Are there other training or other study or other courses that you're thinking about doing post now opening another restaurant?
When I get time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was definitely the right pathway. Like, starting with TVET was really cool because I could start my training while I was still doing my HSC, which a lot of people I know leave school to pursue their career, but I think it was good that I managed to do my HSC at the same time as doing that. And then I ummed and ahed about private culinary schools and things like that. But with TAFE New South Wales, there is so much resources there that you have access to. So I think it was definitely the right the right path to go down, especially when we have the apprentice restaurant upstairs, which basically gives you like work experience while you're still at TAFE. I definitely want to keep doing some training. I just haven't had time.
Opening restaurants is quite a busy thing, so I can imagine
It's
you're
a little
pushed
bit
for
time
time.
consuming.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Amazing. Thank you so much for the introduction to start with, Alana. And we're going to jump across to Christy. Christy, would you like to introduce yourself and talk about your pathway into your industry, please?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name's Christy, and I currently am the owner and founder of Travelmore. Travelmore is predominantly a corporate travel agency. And I actually opened that after I returned to the travel industry after a 15-year break. And I actually opened the day before COVID, the first case of COVID in Australia. So I opened on the 24th of Jan 2020. But we'll get to that. So my story, how I actually got into travel and tourism. Well, when I was in high school, very similar to Alana, I realized that I always wanted to do this type of work in a sense, because jobs previously to that growing up were always customer service based and always events. I worked at the Melbourne Show, the Australia Tennis Open. So a lot of the events that was in Melbourne, I did work as in customer service roles through high school, and an opportunity became available in year 11 when I was in my VCE. And we were actually the second year to ever do this, which was the vet in schools, which it was called back then. And they only actually offered a couple of different subjects at that point in time. So I actually did the Cert 2, started off with the Cert 2 in hospitality, and in year 12 actually also did the Cert 3 in hospitality. So it was great to come out of school with that, but also during that year, because I was torn between hospitality and tourism, because it is very interconnected, and a lot of the roles and things you can use your skills over and for different positions. But so I was always trying to find out what I could do. So there was a few different introductory courses at William Angliss at the time as well. So they had an introductory course into travel and tourism, which was a 2-day course. So I undertook that, and I also undertook a week at it used to be called the International School of Travel and Hospitality, Travel and Tourism in Manly. So I went along, and that was actually a whole week, a careers week, where you get to go there, live in the dorms, to find out what it's going to be like if you actually were a student there. And whilst I was at that course, one of the career advisors there gave me some very handy advice, which I took along in my career to this day. And I always wanted to be a flight attendant at first, and she sort of gave me some advice about that and sort of turned me off the idea. So I came out of that course knowing that I didn't want to be a flight attendant, but I definitely wanted to do hospitality and travel and tourism. So after school, I already had my Cert 3 at that stage, and I decided to enroll in a new course at William Angliss, which was the events and hospitality, which was combined at the time. Whilst doing that course, I applied for one of the jobs that was on the notice board in the careers area there, for a front office position at Quest St Kilda Bayside. So my first job was a front office receptionist at Quest St Kilda Bayside, which I absolutely loved. But whilst working there, I realised that I wanted to not just help the clients and passengers that came into the that accommodation. I also wanted to help other clients. So that's when I moved across. After 2.5 years, I moved across and went back to the drawing board, and I actually went across to travel and started my diploma in travel. Again, whilst I was doing my diploma in travel, a position became available as an internship. So as on a Saturday, working for free at a local travel agency here in Victoria. And that job just progressed. So I ended up leaving the course with a Cert 3 rather than the diploma that I started with, but I now had a full-time job as well. So I stayed in travel altogether for another 6 years, and then life just took me on a different direction. Fast forward, it was October 2019, and at this stage, I was owning a retail business. I had a baby and boutique shop, but my daughter herself was growing, and my passion just didn't wasn't there anymore for this business. And I actually came across my Year 12 yearbook. In my Year 12 yearbook, we had to say where we wanted to be in 10 years' time. It was now 20 years after high school. But anyway, I wrote there on the page, I wanted to have my own travel agency. So I thought, you know what? I've got at least 20, 25 years left before I can retire. So why not? Why not make this dream come true? Like I said, it was October 2019. It took sort of until January to get, I looked at host agencies and different options and things like that. And it took to sort of the January to find my feet and to actually start that business. And I actually commenced on the 24th of Jan 2020, like I mentioned earlier, which was now known as the day before the first case of COVID in Australia. The first month was still, even though this COVID word was around, it wasn't really that much of a big deal for that first month. So it was business as usual. Then, unfortunately, business, as we know, borders shut down. So it would have been easy just to give up, but I decided it was a dream that I wanted for 20 years and I was going to make this continue. So whilst the borders were shut, I continued to work on setting up the business, really the foundations and getting the building blocks going. So by the time the borders was opened, I was there ready to continue to run the business. And I was lucky enough in 2022 to win the National Travel Industry Awards for the Travel Consultant Scholarship. And through that, I was actually awarded a $5,000 education scholarship. So I've actually gone back recently, and I've actually now got also my advanced diploma of travel and tourism. So I actually think training is something that is ongoing, and especially with the travel industry in particular, not necessarily always qualifications, but because everything's updating all the time, you need to be constantly learning and constantly and willing to learn, I guess. So that's one thing that, if you definitely want to get into this industry, you must sort of have that passion for education and that passion to continue learning.
But Chrissy, your transferable skills all the way through, you're talking about front of house, you're talking about communication skills, you're talking about even when you owned your own business, there's that drive, and then moving back into travel you're like the poster person for vet. Like, it's just amazing. And to go back into training and continue on with your advanced diploma is just phenomenal. That's why I kept nodding all the way through, because it's amazing that you kept building those skills and coming through and building those skills again and then going away and coming back. So thank you so much for sharing your introduction. I'm going to jump across to Nicola. Would you like to introduce yourself and talk about your career pathway, please, into your sector?
Lovely. Good morning, everyone. I'm Nicola Strudwick. My current role, I'm the General Manager of Sales of a company called Traveller's Choice. I make up part of the senior management group, and we support independent travel agents around the country. Very similar to Christy's story in terms of travel agents across the country, and we support them with a whole suite of services to help them be the best that they can possibly be. And it's all about them. We're a member-based organisation and we operate very much like a cooperative. Anyway, that's who I am. Just to give you a little bit of story, I'm mindful that I have a little bit more vintage than my fellow panelists. So my entry into our industry will be slightly different but similar. But I hope this sort of gives you some indication of some opportunities as well. I actually emigrated to Australia when I was at the age of 7. So my travel experience started very early. And prior to that, I was very much and still am part of a family that are passionate and enthusiastic travellers. So we would often travel across the continent, in the back of a Canby van, you name it, we did it. So that was very much in my DNA that travel was a part of life. And in fact, when we emigrated to Australia, it wasn't just a quick one-stop flight that we enjoy now. It was actually a 3-stop flight to Singapore, a 3-night stay, and then we had to cruise for 7 days to arrive to Perth. So I was quickly understanding the distance of travel and how far we were actually coming to the other side of the world. So that's where my sort of passion for travel started. I was very mindful that every time we had the opportunity to see family, we stopped off at different destinations and learned lots of things, explored new cultures, and it really opened my eyes that I loved it, and language and food. all of that came with those travel experiences. So when I was in my final year of high school, I was very much directed towards that travel, albeit sometimes I'm not quite sure. There was definitely conversations there of being a vet and a butcher, but I'm not quite sure how that came about. But travel was very much the focus. And at the time, to get into those sorts of roles full time, there were limited choices. So I took a path. It was definitely a certificate in travel that moved into a diploma, and I had to go into the private sector for that. So obviously now this luxury and vast opportunities through TAFE and other learning providers, where you have a suite of educators who you can access all of those fantastic skills. What I will say, though, when I finished that training, I was extremely lucky at the time. The organisation that I was able to get a position with was a company called Thomas Cook, who unfortunately aren't still here in Australia operating, but they were a global company. And I think that's really important in terms of when you're looking for those opportunities, either starting in the industry or growing in the industry, it's who you're looking to work with and what those opportunities are. So being in a global organisation, I had the opportunity to attend and participate in multitudes of training courses and qualifications that allowed me, whilst working with one company, to do lots of different skills. So I started off as a receptionist and giving out everyone's travel documents and bags and typing up itineraries. And then I moved into being the first domestic travel consultant in Australia when that was a thing, and domestic travel still extremely popular and something that drives significant revenue into our sector. I moved into an international consultant. I also learnt foreign exchange, which was really exciting. I got to head out to naval ships and change currency with all the sailors that will come into Western Australia. That was really cool and lots of fun. But it also really gave you some diverse skill set. And from that, I also then went into the groups area. So I would escort near on 300 passengers with some fellow colleagues who were incentive group passengers that we would take and host their conferences, predominantly overseas. So while still working in travel, the roles and responsibilities and the variety of skills that you can learn along the way has been really exciting. From that experience in the travel agency landscape, I then went into some roles which are called consolidation. It may be a little bit foreign to everyone, but that's a division of the industry that very much ticket all the airline tickets. So when you go into your local travel agent and you book your airfare, we book it in a system, and typically there is a company behind that who facilitates all those air tickets. So I worked with them for a little while, very complex, very exciting. And if you like to get into creating itineraries which are diverse and complex and figuring out how you get them from one destination to another and what airline can get you there, that was really exciting. And I loved that opportunity. And then I got myself into a sales role. And what that meant is that I was visiting travel agents and I was introducing them to products that I was representing. So that's very much a brand representation role. And in that comes a lot of learnings. And of course, you want to make sure that you're authentic, but also representing a brand and their expectations. So that was a really interesting time. And there's lots in between because I'm a little bit older, so I won't tell you the whole CV. But what I will say is that I've always stayed connected with these amazing people who educate our future colleagues and industry leaders. I'm often at TAFE and ECU here in Western Australia, speaking and lecturing to students. And I have to say, when it pops up in my diary that I'm going, it's probably one of my favourite days. I love it. And there's lots to talk about. The only thing, if I don't get time to talk about it today, is networking. And I know that Alana's spoken about where she doesn't know how it happened, but she had this really good network and it got her into this amazing place. I would say to you that embrace networking very early on and speak to us to find out where are those opportunities, because there are plenty. And anyone that works in the industry, no matter what sector, they absolutely want you to be the best you can, and they are there to help always.
Amazing. That again, the transferable skills that you've had all the way along as you've been developing throughout your career is phenomenal. And thank you for the advice about networking as well, because it is really important when you are starting out that you are getting those networks and you are making those connections, and you really do want to reach out to people to help you along the pathway is so important. So thank you so much, Nicola. And Tonya, I would love for you to jump on and talk about obviously yourself and your career pathway into what you do, because you have a very varied pathway as well. And you're on mute. You might need to unmute.
There we go. Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's wonderful to be here. I'm Tonya Barr, and I'm the founder of Straight to the Source, and I'm also the group executive chef of 5 Orchard Early Learning Centers here in Sydney. I've been in the food industry 28 years, but I wanted to go straight in. And Nicola, you know, with regards to, I'll skip a bit in my CV as well, but I started out flipping burgers at 15 and found a real desire to learn about where all those ingredients came from. And when I left high school, I wanted to go and I looked at the Culinary Institute in America, and my family said, nope, we're not spending $7 grand on that. And no, you're going to go to college and study business. So I did. And what that allowed me to do is go into the IT industry as a receptionist and work my way up to international sales and marketing manager. But it also allowed me to travel. And I came from a very tiny town where food was limited in terms of the cuisine. And so while I had the opportunity to travel at a young age, I really grabbed it. And I went to supermarkets, I went to farmers markets. I really was able to explore different worlds of food. And then I would go back to San Francisco, where I was working for the software company and going to college. So when I fell in love with an Australian and I moved to Sydney, I was, I guess, 26. And I was in IT. I was very established. I got given a phone, a car, and a street directory for this software client of mine in Newcastle and said, here you go. And it was for the motorcycle industry. So I went out to this motorcycle place, shop out of Richmond, and there were all these farmers, and there were eggs being sold on the side of the road and what have you. And it was there I had an epiphany, because when I lived in California, I was known as the condiment queen. Whenever I'd go to barbecues, I'd make the barbecue sauce, the dips, the pickled garlic dip, whatever. I sat down and I said, surely I can write a business plan or something where I can use my skills, all the toolbox, you know, you keep collecting skills, but do it with food, because that's what I loved. I didn't like software packages for motorcycle spare parts, but I thought, okay, so I wrote a 1-page little business plan, and basically it was called the Condiment Connoisseur. And I decided to import products from America that weren't available in Australia. And I also decided to develop a few of my own products. And I researched old school and got stats delivered and kind of looked where the gaps were. And I won't go into all of that because that's a whole different thing. But what it did is I had a brand, and that is how I got into the food industry. You know, so I went into the food industry with the Condiment Connoisseur. I actually set up a distribution company, took on another product line of American style products, and I had 18 products, got them in Kohl's, Barbecue Galore, David Jones, had 9 staff, had a warehouse, had my own products on the shelf. It was all very exciting and wonderful, but it became 24/7, and I had a kid, and it was just too much. But I got bought out. And when I got bought out, I was able to go to culinary school. So selling that business, I bought an amazing coffee machine, and I set up a small consulting business to help other producers product, you know, navigate food science and labeling and distribution and all of that, because I made a lot of mistakes. And I also did some things right by getting the right contract manufacturers and the right ingredients and being able to tell that story. So I set up a small consultancy business that's 22 years old, and it's still there. And I took myself off to culinary school, and then Destination New South Wales said, hey, you're in the food industry. We've got some visiting journalists. You live, eat, and breathe farmers markets, which is how I feed my family today. They said, would you please run some tours for us? And so that was about 19 years ago, 18, 19 years ago. I said, sure, I've never done it, but I'll do it. I'm still doing them to this day. That's another story. But by getting into the culinary tourism and gastronomic tourism and being able to run those market tours gave me confidence that everything I had learned throughout my career to that date was interesting, and that people don't know, that you can, get certain things at markets and that sort of thing. So what I did from that is I decided to sign up for my Master's of Gastronomic Tourism through Southern Cross Uni and Le Cordon Bleu. And it was about 15 years ago, I set up Straight to the Source. So it's really interesting when I think back, because Straight to the Source, when I wrote that business plan, my tagline for my food consulting business was taking you straight to the source. And it was Tanya Barr Food Consulting. That was my tagline. And I'm like, I want to create a business that will give everybody an opportunity to leave their kitchens and go to farms, go to factories, learn about regions, meet each other, be looked after. There were all these things I wanted because I was always seeking experiences like that for myself. And 14 years later, we're still doing it. So it's really interesting because when I was doing my Master's of Gastronomic Tourism, I met my business partner. And my business partner heads up Delicious Magazine Produce Award. She's owned 3 restaurants with Luke Mangdon. She went by a totally different married name. We became study buddies. And I just kept pushing myself to learn. And the networking that was mentioned earlier is gold, because being a chef and taking myself to Le Cordon Bleu with a lot of people younger than me, and I was already in the industry, but I was older. I had 2 children by then. And it's a young person's game, fighting for your pots and pans and, jockeying for position and all of that. And I made the most incredible friends, either fellow students of mine or the teachers. And to this day, they are my friends. And that network is crucial. I wouldn't be where I was today if I didn't put myself out there, out of my comfort zone, and do things that I really didn't want to do, but I knew it wasn't gonna come to me. So doing the Masters of Gastronomic Tourism and meeting Lucy, Straight to the Source was almost 2 years old. But I also knew if I wanted to grow it, because I knew it was actually affecting chefs' lives in a positive way. So it is tourism, but it's, it is gastronomic tourism, but it's also professional development. I knew I had to grow. So now we have a team of 7. So Lucy joined me as a full-on business partner, her skills front of house, my skills back of house. So I still get to cook on Straight to the Source tours, but I'm not flipping burgers in a greasy little diner anymore. I'm actually, on sheep shearing sheds and oyster leases and in trufferees, and it's extraordinary when I think back of what I've done. And it's all because I went and I've just pushed and I've learned and I've asked questions and made those contacts. And so today, also with regards to nutrition and food, I've always been fascinated about children's food and why some people think children need to eat just chips and nuggets and all that sort of thing. And having 2 children of my own, about 12 years ago, this company approached me who had early learning centers and things, and I started writing menus for them. And so now I am the group executive chef of 5, soon to be 12 early learning centers in New South Wales. So I have 8 chefs under me. So I kind of have Straight to the Source here. And then I also have this very wonderful role as the group executive chef to write menus and to feed children beautiful food and with chickens and all of that. So I guess if I was to leave any last thought, punctuality is important. I think that's very important. And also, there's a lot of people out there that will mentor you, and don't be afraid. We almost lost Straight to the Source when COVID hit, that March 21st, whatever that date was, yeah. Because Straight to the Source was 100% known. Our network of chefs and farmers and producers is big, but we were known for travel. That's what we were known for food experiences at a high level that were professional development. So I took all of my Tanya Barr Food Consulting and put it under Straight to the Source. And now we've created a whole new business that's so much better. We don't ticket any tours. We're engaged. You know, we can be on committees and strategy, and we get paid for it, and we can do it in our pajamas if we want to half the time. You know, the duty of care. It's extraordinary how things kind of play out. But when Katrina reached out to me, it was an absolute pleasure to come on today, because listening to all of your stories is just so wonderful, and we are very fortunate in this country to be able to do some really exciting stuff. So thank you very much for having me.
No worries, Tonya. Thank you so much. And I think the only person I forgot to ask at the start is Alana. What advice would you give to someone wanting to start in the industry before we wrap up?
Am I still muted? No, I'm not
No,
muted
you're
anymore.
not.
Good.
You're right.
As cheesy as this sounds, make sure it's actually what you want, because it's a hard industry. Yeah, I even remember, like, in culinary school, like, when we started our classes, there was 20 of us, and by the end of it there was like 6 or something like that. So if it's what you want, go for it. If it's not what you want, don't. Be kind to yourself, and keep your head down, and focus more on why you love it, and let yourself enjoy the learning experience, instead of getting caught up in the, oh my God, am I going to be first in my class? Am I going to be a successful chef? Just trust the process. And it's not simple. It's not something you can learn overnight, but if it's something you love, then respect that it takes time, and keep pushing yourself, and yeah, you'll get there.
Amazing. Thank you. Look, we're a couple of minutes over time. I want to thank Alana, Christy, Nicola, and Tonya for coming on today. We really appreciate your insights and pathways, and just hearing people's different career journeys is always super exciting. So if you are on this call today and have any burning questions, please reach out to us, and so we can ask the attendees today. Thank you so much for coming and listening to everybody. That would be fantastic. Someone has asked if we can have a group photo. I'm more than happy for someone. I think Sarah will organize from my team with the recording. We might stop it at a point when everybody looks like they're smiling, and we'll take a screenshot and send it around from there. So thank you so much for everybody coming this morning. I was going to say this afternoon. And enjoy the rest of your day. I really appreciate your attendance. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.